After 3 weeks, we make a return to the glory of Horizons. And it starts off with kinda a banger. I really liked this episode, it was kinda cool. Wait, am I the only one who liked this episode?
Pokemon Ranger, I choose you!
What's up my dear boys and girls, it's your Ranger Boy here and welcome to another review of Pokemon Horizons. And with episode 13, we return to the adventures of Liko, Roy, and the Rising Ball Tacklers. And I really liked this episode a lot. Am I weird? Well, if you want to know the answer to that, then grab some popcorn, grab some cookies, and let's do this. After a short recap, we suddenly discover that the airship seems to have some sort of technical issues. And after a snide remark by Molly, calling the ship all junker, my girl Orla does not appreciate that comment at all, since the ship is her pride and that she put a lot of love into it. So I do have to become a ship to be covered in her love? I will gladly do that. Or is that one of those weird fetishes like the guy on TLC who is in love with his car? I don't know. I'm not judging. Also, it seems like that the ship originally was Ludlow's ship until Freed one day came to my waifu and demanded, I want the ship to fly. And Orla is all like, okay. She's the best. So while Dot is taking care of the technical issues, the rest of the crew decides to organize a spontaneous picnic near Levincia town. And we all know who resides there. And just like you guys, I'm also eagerly waiting for her debut, because I want that YouTuber battle right now. But before we arrive to that glorious day, it's time to make some sandwiches. Liko's sandwich actually looks a lot like the ones I'm always doing, and people call it plain. Why am I feeling judged? No need to worry, my girl. We both are in the simple but delicious camp. I would rather have your sandwich than Roy's, which screams abomination right from the get-go, or Freed's, which is just one step away from a heart attack. While seeing everyone enjoying their meal, Liko can't help but to remember how everything started and how much her life has changed after meeting Sprigatito. And then, while looking at Roy, admiring his ancient Pokeball, we then get a recap of Roy's story so far. And after Roy took a selfie alongside the main character of Horizons, sorry Roy, I honestly didn't intend for that line to be a dig at you. Until now. Where was I again? Oh yeah, so they both took a selfie and sent it to Dot, who still remains on the ship. And quickly enough, Liko wishes that both Dot and Ludlow would be able to join the picnic as well, instead of being stuck on the ship. Aw, that's so considerate of her. Then we suddenly change the pace of the episode, with this region's bird Pokemon Wattrel snatching away Fuecoco's food. And soon after that, Roy is chasing down the Pokemon, while the other Pokemon surrounding them don't move at all. Come on Horizons, this is some Journey's level of animation laziness. You can do better. Anyway, after arriving at a nearby cliff, instead of flying away, Wattrel suddenly stops and is now facing off against our heroes. After stomping Tantrum has no effect on a flying type Pokemon, because of course, Wattrel uses Growl to intimidate his foe. And Roy's counter to that? It's Roy. You know exactly what's coming. He counters this assault by singing. God. I always have to remind myself that this is a long-term build-up to Skeledirge and Torch song. Accept and embrace the cringe. I guess I'm the only one who can handle the cringe, since the nearby Pokemon run away from this torture, and thanks to that, Roy stops the quote-unquote battle by sharing his sandwich with the regional bird, which Wattrel shows gratitude by just snatching the other half of the sandwich as well. Bastard! Initially let down by this first encounter, Roy then suddenly witnesses some other Wattrel flying through the air, causing him to then wondering why Wattrel doesn't want to join them. While Roy just discovered a potential new problem, Liko wants to solve her current one, aka finding a way for both Dot and Ludlow to experience the power of sandwich and friendship without them leaving the ship. And with the help of Murdoch, she cooks up a plan. Meanwhile, on board of the ship, Dot seems to struggle to create a YouTube video about picnics and sandwiches, since she never attended one to begin with. But after receiving a message from Liko and how she prepared some food for her bestie, the shut-in accepts the offer tsundere style. But it turns out that there wasn't anything prepared for her at all. But instead, Dot now has to make a sandwich all by herself. And with Ludlow explaining that Liko did this to share her enjoyment of making sandwiches together with Dot, the influencer can't help but to blush as a result of Liko's kindness. Back to our protagonist, Liko seems to be very happy of how her plan turned out, followed up by her receiving a picture from Dot straight up in her Nidoking outfit, as if she was saying, look bestie, I'm sharing my secret with you now. And after seeing all that, Liko comes to the odd conclusion that Dot put on the costume to make her happy, since both are Nidoking superfans. This girl! Freed is all confused about that logic and almost told Liko everything about Dot. But then Murdoch intervenes and is all like, let her figure it out herself. And I'm like, bruh, if we let a dense character try to figure out a secret by him or herself, the secret will never be exposed. Oh. Unless you kiss the dense protagonist right on the mouth, Dot. You know what to do. Nidoking then finally makes a YouTube video about sandwiches and picnic, coincidentally right after making sandwiches with Liko. Roy, despite just returning from his encounter with Watrel, seems to be very concerned about the bird and runs right back to him. And the episode ends with Spinel from the Explorers beginning phase 1 of his plan by shutting down the computer system of the ship. So that's the episode, and without any further time wasting, let's do some impressions. Usually I start off with the good aspects of the episode, but this time I want to start off with the negative ones first, since a lot of people seem to really dislike this episode, and to a certain extent I do understand why. The main issue seems to be the whole quote-unquote battle between Watrel and Fuecoco, and how Roy's counter was once again just singing. On the one hand, I do understand why people dislike that, since it's still a little bit cringe-inducing, but on the other hand, at least for me, his singing is like the sky being blue or the grass being green. At this point it's normal, because not only does it make the story of both Roy and Fuecoco stand out, but just like I mentioned numerous times before, the purpose of this singing is clearly to foreshadow the potential evolution of Fuecoco to Skeledirge, thanks to his signature move, Torch Song. So the only advice I can give is be patient and just embrace the cringe. As long as the singing isn't used as a, let's say, Deus Ex Machina, so that Arceus appears and solves an unsolvable problem, I'm totally fine with that. I guess another thing that could be seen as a downside was the entire first half of the episode, which consisted of the crew just making sandwiches while also doing some recaps of past events. Again, I thought that the first half of them making sandwiches was actually really enjoyable, and I also didn't really mind the recaps because unlike the past where we had full episodes of just recaps, at least the recaps were done very quickly. But most importantly, I think both the Watrel encounter and the sandwich making were build-ups to the actual great parts of this episode, the character moments of Liko, Roy, and Dot. In Liko's case, it was all about deepening her friendship with Dot, while also showcasing the more considerate side of her. She wanted to share this experience of enjoyment with her friend, while also respecting and understanding the situation from Dot's point of view, so she tried her best to find a middle ground between those two aspects. Once again, a great character moment of Liko, but I do hope that we soon get a little bit more story progression. She's helping Roy out by trying to catch the legendary 6 heroes, but it would be nice to see a bit more story that is just dedicated to her, which I'm sure we will get soon enough thanks to her future encounter with her grandma. Next up we have Dot and her slowly but surely opening up towards the outside world thanks to Liko, and as a result of that she makes new experiences that she has never done before. Hopefully we will see more of these kinds of moments, and maybe even with the involvement of Iono as well, which in my opinion would be a really neat way to connect those two with each other. Last but certainly not least, Roy, and here I have to say props to Horizons, because what they did here with the encounter of Watrel was not only a character moment, but also has some hints of actual character development as well. Remember his interactions with gym leader Brassius? Back then, I criticized Roy for not showing any kind of empathy towards the gym leader's problems, and instead all Roy cared about was his own desires. And I remember how many of you actually defended Roy by stating that this disregard and lack of empathy could actually lead to some character development of Roy, and how Roy will learn throughout the series to actually care about the issues of other individuals. In the earlier episodes, him actually showing some passion for Fuecoco's dream was the only reason why his grandpa allowed him to go on a journey to begin with, and now he not only shows interest in the dream of his partner, but also in this episode he shows concern and empathy towards the problems of individuals outside of his friend group, aka Watrel. He recognizes that Watrel seems to isolate himself from his companions, and even after the encounter Roy couldn't help but to think about the little guy, and that something seems to be wrong with him. So therefore he wants to help him out even though they barely know each other. I might be wrong here, but I think that this is some very subtle but also very cool way of showing progression, and to be honest, this is probably the very first time where I actually really like how Horizons is handling Roy, and I really hope that they will continue this, because without being ironic, I really like it. So yes, the content in regards of both Liko and Roy from a superficial point of view seems to be very shallow and a bit annoying, but if you take a closer look, it's actually really good and could be the start of something very interesting for all people involved. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this review. What is your opinion? Tell me, and just like always, see you guys in the comments down below. Bye guys!